The road towards the second North Korea-US summit seems to be picking up speed after Kim Jong-un gave a very positive reaction to the latest letter received from the US. North Korean state media says Kim expressed satisfaction over the recent talks with Washington and that he was looking forward to the meeting. We'll have more on that story later in the show. But first, let's get some of the day's other top headlines by turning to Devin Whiting at the News Centre. Devin?
Hi, Jong-un. We'll start at South Korea's central bank. In a widely expected move, the BOK has decided in its first monetary policy meeting of the year to keep its benchmark rate steady at 1.75%. Its forecast for economic growth this year a little lower than last year at 2.6%. As for consumer prices, it expects a rise of 1.4%. Kim Hae-sung reports.
The Bank of Korea on Thursday kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at 1.75% for January. This comes after it raised its key rate by 0.25% for the first time in about a year last November. The central bank pointed to weakening economic growth and slowing exports and investment for its latest decision. The local economy grew 2.7% in 2018, slowing from 3.1% in 2017 to mark the slowest pace of growth in 6 years. Data by the Korea Customs Service shows that between January 1st and 20th, overseas shipments fell by 14% on year and exports to China dropped by double digits. Sales of semiconductors, a key driver of growth in recent years, tumbled almost 30% on year in January. Facilities investment in 2018 declined 1.7% and construction investment also fell 4%, hitting the lowest level in 2 decades. Consumer prices rose 1.5% in 2018, below the bank's 2% target. Externally, the slowing global economy and the U.S.-China trade spat could further hurt Korea's exports. At the same time, a less hawkish U.S. Federal Reserve has eased pressure on the BOK to raise its key rate, with the U.S.-Korea rate gap expected to stay at 0.75 percentage points. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Global credit ratings agency Fitch has decided to keep its rating for South Korea at AA-, the fourth highest level. In an online report Thursday, Fitch said its outlook for South Korea is stable, citing robust external finances and a solid macroeconomic performance. It did, however, point to rising future challenges for South Korea, including the evolving geopolitical risk from its relationship with North Korea, low productivity stemming from the country's rapidly aging population, and trade uncertainties due to the slowing global economy. Fitch projected annual growth this year and next of 2.5%. President Moon Jae-in went to Daejeon today as part of his tour aimed at boosting local economies outside of Seoul. There he stressed the importance of South Korea taking the lead in the era of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Here's the president.
4차 산업혁명 시대는 우리에게 새로운 도전입니다. 그러나 추격형에서 선도형 경제로 나아갈 수 있는 절호의 기회를 주었습니다. 과학기술의 혁신이 그 출발점이 될 것입니다.
President Moon pledged active support from the government to achieve several things, namely to boost the nation's data market, to cultivate more than 10,000 experts in artificial intelligence, and to create an environment that encourages R&D. The government will also work to increase investment in leading businesses, including so-called super-connected intelligence, smart factories, and fintech. He asked the city of Daejeon, home to many research institutes, to lead South Korea into the Fourth Industrial Revolution. In other news, a Japanese patrol aircraft has again conducted what Seoul is calling an aggressive, low-altitude flight near a South Korean warship. The Defense Ministry in Seoul immediately condemned the flight, but Japan insists the aircraft was merely conducting a regular mission. Kan Hyung-woo reports.
South Korea's Ministry of National Defense has strongly condemned a Japanese warplane's low-altitude flight near a South Korean warship, calling it a provocative act. The Daejeon destroyer was on a regular mission near the nation's southernmost island of Yeodo on Wednesday, when the Japanese P-3 maritime patrol aircraft approached the vessel. It came as close as 540 meters to the ship at an altitude of 60 to 70 meters. The Navy vessel sent multiple messages to the plane, requesting it change its flight course as it was flying in a threatening manner.
The fact that Japan has conducted another aggressive low-altitude flight despite South Korea's clear requests that it prevent this from happening again is an unambiguous provocation against a ship belonging to a military partner. Thus, we cannot help but question Japan's intentions, and we strongly condemn Japan's actions. Should this happen again, we will respond in line with our military's code of conduct.
Seoul's defense ministry called in the Japanese military attaché on the same day to deliver a strong protest. According to the South Korean military, Wednesday's low-altitude flyby was already the third time that a Japanese patrol aircraft has flown near a South Korean vessel in a threatening manner in January alone. The previous incidents took place on the 18th and the 22nd. But Tokyo denies Seoul's claims, saying its plane was on a regular mission. Japan's defense ministry says the aircraft was not flying in a threatening manner and it was not at the low altitude South Korea claims. The latest incident has further intensified the tension between the two nations. Seoul and Tokyo have been locked in a month-long dispute over a South Korean warship's operation of radar for a humanitarian mission to rescue a North Korean vessel on December 20th. Kanyong-woo, Arirang News.
The foreign ministries of South Korea and China held a meeting in Seoul on Wednesday on how to deal with the fine dust pollution plaguing both countries. The South Korean officials emphasized that the two sides have to keep working hand in hand to improve air quality to the point where citizens can feel that it's actually improving. The Chinese officials said air quality in China is now 40% better than it was in 2013, and that reducing fine dust requires a long-term effort. Both sides agreed to have fine dust experts at future meetings to share air quality forecasting technology and to do joint research on environmental measures. Early this morning, a former Chief Justice of South Korea's Supreme Court, Yang Sung-tae, became the first Chief Justice to be put under arrest. He faces dozens of charges related to the alleged abuse of his power. Choi Young reports.
The ex-chief of South Korea's High Court is the first top-level official in the nation's judiciary, sitting or former, to ever be arrested and imprisoned. In the early hours of Thursday morning, the Seoul Central District Court issued its arrest warrant for Yang Sung-tae, who was waiting for the court's decision at the Seoul Detention Center in Gyeonggi-do Province. The 70-year-old faces over 40 charges, most of which are related to abuse of power. He is accused of using trials as bargaining chips in his dealings with the former Park Geun-hye government to achieve its long-envisioned plan of establishing a separate court of appeals and creating a blacklist of judges who opposed his plan. These trials include ones filed by Korean plaintiffs against Japanese firms that forced them to work for little or no pay during World War II. Explaining his decision to issue the arrest warrant, the judge at the Seoul Central District Court said the allegations against Yang were clear and serious, and there are concerns he may destroy evidence. During the arrest warrant review, prosecutors presented more evidence showing Yang was not merely engaged in the alleged crimes, but actively coordinated them. Yang defended his rightful exercise of power and placed blame either on subordinates or memory lapses. Yang will now attend trial hearings from the Seoul Detention Center. Since he was a former head of the judiciary, it's likely that he will be placed in a cell separate from other inmates, as was the case with former President Park Geun-hye, also detained at the center. Choi Young, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines.
North Korean senior official Kim Young-chul is back in Pyongyang after his trip to Washington. He is said to have briefed the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un of the meetings that he had with US President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He also delivered Trump's latest letter to Kim, which garnered a very positive response. Our Oh Jung-hee reports.
The North Korean leader's right-hand man, Kim Young-chul, who met with U.S. President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Washington, has briefed Kim Jong-un on the results of those meetings. And Pyongyang state media reported that Kim Jong-un also received another letter from President Trump. According to that report, Kim Jong-un said Trump has shown, quote, extraordinary determination and willingness. Kim also stressed that North Korea will wait with patience and take steps with the U.S. to move together towards their common ultimate goal. The North's top nuclear negotiator, Kim Yong-chol, spent 3 days in Washington last week. He's believed to have discussed where and when to hold the second Pyongyang-Washington summit. Another key talking point would have been what North Korea should do next and what the U.S. can give in return. Pyongyang is claiming that it has taken steps towards denuclearization. It has dismantled its Punggye nuclear test site and Dongchangri missile engine test site, and so the U.S. has to ease sanctions. But the U.S. has been firm that sanctions can't be lifted until Pyongyang shows more concrete steps towards denuclearization. This gap in views has been the key reason for the months-long deadlock in the nuclear negotiations. But as they're determined to hold the summit, it's expected delegations from North Korea and the U.S. will continue meeting to reach a deal. Earlier this week, as Kim Yong-chol wrapped up his Washington visit, North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee met with U.S. Special Representative on North Korea Stephen Biegun and South Korea's Representative Lee Do-hoon for 3 days in Sweden. Additional meetings could take place. The White House has announced that the Kim-Trump summit will be held in late February, but the location of it hasn't been announced yet. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
For more, joining us today, we have with us Professor Min Jong-un from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. It's good to have you back on the show today.
My pleasure.
So we've got the first reaction from North Korea over the recent talks with the US. Kim Yong-chol briefed Kim Jong-un on his meetings with Pompeo and Trump, and I would say Kim's reaction was very positive. If I quote directly from the North Korean media report, he said he spoke highly of President Trump for expressing his unusual determination and will for the settlement of the issue with a great interest in the second North Korea-US summit. Are you surprised by this very overly positive response?
Not exactly surprised, but I welcome his positive response and reaction. As you mentioned, it is reported that the Kim Yong-chol made a briefing to Chairman Kim about his visit to Washington last week. And then in the meeting, the Chairman Kim first expressed great satisfaction when he received a letter from President Trump. And he also mentioned that he would believe in President Trump's positive way of thinking about the matter. So these are signs consisting of his positive reactions to the Kim Yong-chol's visit this time. But there are other things that we have to focus on, and because he also mentioned that he would wait with patience and in good faith and make a progress together with the U.S. toward the goal set by the two countries. These remarks consist of some the remaining things that two countries have to do. So it shows that some kind of gaps still exist between the two countries for the North Korea's denuclearization measures and U.S. corresponding measures. So, but the overall reaction by Chairman Kim means that North Korea and U.S. made some progress in terms of narrowing down their gaps in terms of the corresponding measures. So it is a good sign for the upcoming second summit between the countries.
You say Kim's reaction shows there was some sort of progress. We still haven't got the details of what they discussed, really. We might never really find out. But what do you think that this reaction does suggest? I mean, what progress, detail-wise, do you think could have been made?
Think about what we got in the first North Korea-US summit last year. You know, we got the historic first summit between the two countries, but there also was some kind of criticism that there was no specific measures or progress in terms of North Korea's denuclearization measures. So the North Korea and U.S., they're fully aware of what they did. And still in Washington, there are pessimistic views among the experts on North Korea and the Korean Peninsula, and they still be suspicious about whether or not the Chairman Kim or North Korea got the sincere will to denuclearize itself. So in the upcoming second summit between the two countries, the President Trump and Chairman Kim tried to make some kind of deal in terms of making progress on the North Korea's denuclearization measures. So in terms of Kim Yong-chol's the visit to Washington and the following working level talks between North Korea and the United States and the South Korean representatives, The overall results of the meetings show that there have been some kind of the progress in terms of the main agenda of the North Korea-U.S. negotiations, specifically the North Korea's denuclearization measures and U.S. corresponding measures. And as you mentioned, we don't know yet what kind of the deals or the progress they made, but we will see the details of the progress when we got the second summit.
So we've seen Kim Jong-un's reaction. We also got a little bit of Pompeo's reaction earlier this week as well, because he held an interview with the World Economic Forum, where he seemed a bit more reserved about what's going on with the situation. He talked about the working level talks between US and North Korea in Sweden, and he said, quote, that a little bit more progress was made, but there were more steps to go. That little bit more progress, I mean, what do you think that tells us?
Well, we still wait until we get the second summit, because North Korea and the U.S. working level the officials, they will continue to talk, or they will have the dialogues and talks and again until the last moments of the second summit. But according to what the Secretary Pompeo mentioned recently, and the first he mentioned that some progress was made in terms of the Kim Young-cheol's visit to Washington last week, and also a little bit more progress was also made in terms of the working level talks recently in Sweden. So we got to see there's some progress. So we don't know exactly what happened there, but we just guess. But most people think that they have some progress in terms of the main agenda of North Korea-U.S. negotiations. So the North Korea's denuclearization measures and the U.S. corresponding measures. But as you know, what North Korea really want to get from the U.S. most is to relieve economic sanctions imposed to North Korea. And but the U.S. doesn't want to do that. And the U.S. is willing to relieve sanctions only when North Korea makes some real progress or significant progress in terms of the denuclearization itself. So the two countries are fully aware with that kind of situation, and the Secretary Pompeo mentioned a little more progress about the main agenda. So I suspect that the two countries got some progress in terms of exchanging the measures between the two countries, possibly some the significant denuclearization measures, including Yongbyon nuclear facilities or the dismantling some ICBMs, and relieving the economic sanctions imposed to North Korea, and the security guarantee measures.
The interview with Pompeo at the World Economic Forum was very interesting, because he was asked about the economic potential of the private sector getting involved in North Korea. And he said right now there's not much role for the private sector to be involved in North Korea, but he continued to express how there will be, and that North Korea is very much well aware of that potential. Now, I'm not sure if this question was planned, but or if it was World Economic Forum who wanted to ask this question, or if it was Pompeo who wanted to bring it up. But what do you make of that comment?
Well, the private sector involvement to North Korea is not new, because the Secretary Pompeo already mentioned, and the President Trump already mentioned that kind of involvement last year, like during the first summit with North Korea in Singapore. And you remember that the President Trump and the Chairman Kim shared some kind of video showing the future development of North Korea during the summit. So the U.S. is focused on and the U.S. is trying to show North Korea that if North Korea completes its denuclearization measures, then the bright future, including the economic development, will stay there, and will wait for North Korea. So what the Pompeo mentioned, the private sector involvement this time, just repeated that kind of the statement, that kind of the future of North Korea. So Pompeo mentioned that the private sector involvement to North Korea could happen only when North Korea completes its denuclearization measures. So just the repeated that plan, but it is also important why Pompeo mentioned that kind of thing this time. It implies that North Korea and U.S. made some progress in terms of the denuclearization and the corresponding measures provided by United States. So based on some progress they made this time, Pompeo just showed off, or what kind of showed again that what kind of the good things, the benefits North Korea or the U.S. could provide to North Korea.
We'll have to see how that kind of factor gets involved in the new agreements. One more unexpected revelation that I want to touch upon in Pompeo's interview was that he revealed that the US nuclear envoy, Stephen Biegun, was introduced to his new North Korean counterpart. Now, this comes as a surprise because we always thought his North Korean counterpart was the Vice Foreign Minister, Choi Sun-il. But now we're finding out that might not be the case, and there's reports coming out that it's actually going to be Kim Hyuk-chol, who's Pyongyang's former ambassador to Spain. What do you make of this development, and how do you think that affects these negotiations going ahead?
Well, I was also surprised to see that kind of their announcement, but I don't think that the Vice Minister Choi Sun-il would be wiped out or just excluded from the negotiations. Instead, I expect that Kim Hyuk-chol joins the negotiation teams to North Korea. And still, North Korea-U.S. negotiations are going through the initial process and the very crucial and the very critical process at the stage of the negotiations. So, and Kim Hyuk-chol is leading the negotiation on the North Korean side. And for the upcoming the negotiations, more active negotiations with the United States and South Korea, the Kim Hyuk-chol need to have the more steps, more age, to facilitate the negotiations. So I think that the Kim Hyuk-chol just joins the team, and so the Kim Hyuk-chol and the Choi Sun-il will share, or they share their roles, and they will actively respond or cooperate with the U.S. and the South Korean counterpart. So I expect that Kim Hyuk-chol will continue to lead the negotiations, and he got the more age to help him for the negotiations.
So now that we know Kim Hyuk-chol is Stephen Biegun's counterpart, and we've had these working level talks in Sweden, and we've had this other talks as well between Kim Hyuk-chol and Pompeo and Trump. So what comes next now? We know that they've announced that there's going to be a US-North Korea summit towards the end of February. But what happens in between then? Are we going to see far more working level talks, or do they need to be senior level talks? What can we expect?
Well, first, I expect that the North Korea and the U.S. will announce the when and where the second summit will be held sooner or later, considering the positive responses or reactions that President Trump and Chairman Kim made recently. And then the working level talks, including the senior level talks, there would be no difference between the senior level, the minister level, or the working level, the talks, because they are working like they're just one team. So the top leader, or they are leading by the Kim Hyuk-chol and the Pompeo, and the Choi Sun-il and Biegun and Kim Hyuk-chol and other officials are consisting of their teams. So probably there could be some possibility that there would be some kind of different or separate the meetings between senior level and the working level talks. But we got just one more month to go before the second summit. So I expect that they just working together as one team, and probably like 2+2 meetings, including Pompeo, Kim Hyuk-chol, and the Choi Sun-il, Biegun, Kim Hyuk-chol, and they working together as just one team and respectively, and they try to meet as much as possible, like in Panmunjom, the 5 or 6 times were possible, because they still got some kind of gaps in terms of the main agenda of the summit. So they try to, I expect that they try to meet and hold the meetings and again and try to narrow down the gap and make a good deal before the second summit. That's what I expect in the near future.
So it's going to be a very busy few weeks for these officials. We hope you can keep an eye on that and let us know more about that as well next time you come in. Thank you for coming in today and sharing us your insights.
Okay, thank you.
That's all we have time for today. I'll be back again tomorrow. But in the meantime, do stay tuned to Arirang for our later newscasts as we bring you the latest updates from Korea and around the world. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Goodbye.
Ghent, the city of free-whelming charm created by the blend of art and culture. Music, the free form of art. The world I see becomes the lyrics.
Having again my favorite